Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Let's go ahead and wrap up week 11. That's 66 episodes of today's Tolkien Times already, with Silmarillion Saturday. Saturdays, of course, are our chance to revisit the history and legends of the Elder Days, whether from the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, or more. Now, last week, we continued the incredible tale of Hurin that we started back in week 9. We witnessed the courage of Hurin as he faced off against Morgoth himself, and he gave as good as he got. Today, though, we'll join Hurin and see the tragic end of his tale. And I'll just tell you now, it's quite possible that I'll get choked up reading this, so please forgive me. This story gets me every single time. First, I'll start from chapter 22 of the Silmarillion of the Ruin of Doriath. Unhappy was the lot of Hurin, for all that Morgoth knew of the working of his malice, Hurin knew also, but lies were mingled with the truth, and aught that was good was hidden or distorted. In all ways, Morgoth sought most to cast an evil light on those things that Thingol and Melian had done, for he hated them and feared them. When therefore he judged the time to be ripe, he released Hurin from his bondage, bidding him go whither he would, and he feigned that in this he was moved by pity as for an enemy utterly defeated. But he lied, for his purpose was that Hurin should still further his hatred for elves and men ere he died. Then, little though he trusted the words of Morgoth, knowing indeed that he was without pity, Hurin took his freedom and went forth in grief, embittered by the words of the Dark Lord, and a year was now gone since the death of Turin his son. For 28 years he had been captive in Angband, and he was grown grim to look upon. His hair and beard were white and long, but he walked unbowed, bearing a great black staff, and he was girt with a sword. Thus he passed into Hithlum, and tidings came to the chieftains of the Easterlings that there was a great riding of captains and black soldiers of Angband over the sands of Anfauglith, and with them came an old man, as one that was held in high honor. Therefore they did not lay hands on Hurin, but let him walk at will in those lands, in which they were wise. For the remnant of his own people shunned him, because of his coming from Angband as one in league and honor with Morgoth. Thus his freedom did but increase the bitterness of Hurin's heart, and he departed from the land of Hithlum and went up into the mountains. Then we read that he tried to return to Gondolin and cried out for Turgon. Morgoth's spies had followed him, and now they knew at least the area where Gondolin was. In his sleep he heard the voice of his wife, Morwen, calling from him from Brethil, and so he went there, coming eventually to the crossings of Teglin, even to the place of the death of Glaurung, and the stone standing near the edge of Cabad Naramarth, the leap of dreadful doom. And now I'll pick up again, but this time from chapter 18 in the Children of Hurin. But Hurin did not look at the stone, for he knew what was written there, and his eyes had seen that he was not alone. Sitting in the shadow of the stone, there was a figure bent over its knees. Some homeless wanderer, broken with age, it seemed, too wayworn to heed his coming. But its rags were the remnants of a woman's garb. At length, as Hurin stood there silent, she cast back her tattered hood and lifted up her face slowly, haggard and hungry as a long-hunted wolf. Gray she was, sharp-nosed with broken teeth, and with a lean hand she clawed the cloak upon her breast. But suddenly her eyes looked into his, and then Hurin knew her. For though they were wild now and full of fear, a light still gleamed in them, hard to endure. The elven light that long ago had earned her her name, Elithwen, proudest of mortal women in the days of old. "Elithwen! Elithwen!" Hurin cried, and she rose and stumbled forward, and he caught her in his arms. "You come at last," she said. "I have waited too long." "It was a dark road. I've come as I could," he answered. "But you are late," she said. "Too late. They are lost." "I know," he said, "but you are not." "Almost," she said. "I am spent utterly. I shall go with the sun. They're lost. She clutched at his cloak. "Little time is left," she said. "If you know, tell me, how did she find him?" But Hurin did not answer, and he sat beside the stone with Morwen in his arms, and they did not speak again. The sun went down, and Morwen sighed and clasped his hand and was still, and Hurin knew that she had died. And now back to the version in the Silmarillion, if I can gather myself. He looked down at her in the twilight, and it seemed to him that the lines of grief and cruel hardship were smoothed away. "She was not conquered," he said. And he closed her eyes and sat unmoving beside her as the night drew down. The waters of Cabed-Nairemarth roared on, but he heard no sound, and he saw nothing, and felt nothing, for his heart was stone within him. But there came a chill wind that drove sharp rain into his face, and he was roused, and anger rose in him like smoke, mastering reason, so that all his desire was to seek vengeance for his wrongs and for the wrongs of his kin, accusing in his anguish all those who ever had dealings with them. Then he rose up, and he made a grave for Morwen above Cabed-Nairemarth on the west side of the stone, and upon it he cut these words, "Here lies also Morwen Elethwen." It is told that a seer and harp player of Brethil named Glirhuin made a song, saying that the stone of the hapless should not be defiled by Morgoth, nor ever thrown down, not though the sea should drown all land, as after indeed befell, and still Tol Morwen stands alone in the water beyond the new coasts that were made in the days of the wrath of the Valar. But Hurin does not lie there, for his doom drove him on, and the shadow still followed him. Tolkien's ability to evoke the rawest of emotions is nearly at its strongest here. Now, there are countless times where his words trigger everything from hope to fear, courage to terror, joy to sadness, all deeply and truly felt. But this moment, Hurin encountering his wife, the mother of their children, Turin and Nienor, whose tragic ends he would have seen from Morgoth's captivity, only to lose her hours later. It is no wonder at all that Hurin is stone-hearted before becoming angry and wanting to get revenge. How could he not, after all he has seen and endured for nearly 30 years? This is a powerful, powerful story with a tearjerker ending for sure. Now, folks, before we finish this week off, I want to remind you that the Patreon for today's Tolkien Times launches today, Saturday, August 12th. Please consider supporting today's Tolkien Times. When you do, you're going to get a bunch of different good stuff, depending on the tier that you choose. You can get everything from an ad-free feed for the show. You can get a monthly hangout that's just for TTT patrons. Maybe you want priority for choosing readings and mailbag questions. Or maybe you want to get a bonus, patron-exclusive weekly episode and free merch. So go to tolkientimes.com/Patreon right now to learn more and be ready to sign up. Or actually by now, patreon.com/TolkienTimes should be live. Now there will be discounts and a special offer for folks who sign up for the annual plan during the next few weeks. But that does it for today's Silmarillion Saturday. Come back for more of the Elder Days every Saturday as we open up the pages of Middle-earth history. And if there is a first or second age story that you want to hear me read and discuss, please let me know by emailing barnabin@theprancingponypodcast.com. Of course, if you're not already listening to the Prancing Pony Podcast, please consider giving it a go. We've got more than 300 episodes and 7 million downloads walking our way through the Legendarium, including the first 50 or so just on the Silmarillion. Now, speaking of the Prancing Pony Podcast, the main show is 2 weeks now into its summer hiatus. By the time you see this, I will have taken a week off to recharge my batteries. Now it's time to fix the things that I don't have time to fix mid-season and start preparing for Season 8. Now, I recommend you use the next few weeks to catch up on any old episodes that you've missed, or maybe give our highlight episodes a listen. Those are our 11th and, well, 222nd, naturally. Never did really come up with an 11th equivalent for 222. 333 is going to show up later next season. Now, check out our outtakes and a lot more on the website, theprancingponypodcast.com. Finally, join me again next Monday as we start week 12 of today's Tolkien Times with Mailbag Monday. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, follow or subscribe in your podcast apps, and follow at Tolkien Times on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.